Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we've established quorum. We have yourself, we have Delegate Danny Simpson, Delegate Rick Nez, and Delegate Shauna Claw on the call.
Wait till? Do we wait till
Wait till
10?
10.
Oh, okay. Okay, is it,
But
okay,
we've established quorum.
okay, well, we'll just wait another, what,
2 minutes.
45 seconds? Good morning, honorable members of the Resources and Development Committee, and also to the listeners on the call and to, staff and individuals that are present here at the Navajo Nation, the, last week off from our regular RDC meeting, where we were up in Washington DC advocating on several issues, on behalf of the Navajo Nation. So with that, I just want to, thank, Navajo Nation Land Department for always allowing Resources and Development Committee to utilize their conference room for our meetings. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. And Mr. Tahi, if you can please take roll call.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call for Resource and Development Committee of the 25th Navajo Nations Council's regular meeting for Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Roll call, Honorable Brenda Jesus.
Present.
Honorable Brenda Jesus is present. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson. Honorable Shauna N. Claw.
Shauna N. Claw, present.
Honorable Shauna N. Claw is present. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez is present.
Honorable Rick Nez is present. Honorable Danny Simpson.
Here.
Honorable Danny Simpson is present. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson. Honorable Otto So. Madam Chair, you have 4 members available, which establishes the quorum. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Tahi. And next, I'd like to go ahead and request for, invocation. So, Shadeja, Honorable Claw, Kodong Ashonda to the Zenbei Jakat deed was to open the meeting for today's Resources and Development Committee meeting.
Akoshi, to our honorable members of Resources and Development Committee, and then also our legislative staff, our legislative council, our presenters today, and our listeners online. I want to welcome you this morning to our regular RDC meeting. My name is Shauna N. Claw. My clans are Hawatlan and the Shlito Twitchini, Bashichin, Kachini, the Shichedo Kia Ani, the Shanala Kwatama, the Sunshine. Kachi Aya to the Zen A Behastito Le. A Jodo Le Quashamana Hastan, the Quashatadian Lini, B and Joba. Ano Kuden and Ani, the Jalon Ko, Bikin eat or Le Hala Abe and Sa case not see has sent enough beats a lago. Kude Naltos Kagi, Altronja Aya Naha. La as lead or Le Don Jonago A Nahat up beats a lado Le. Ada Kuden is a Nenigi A. Ye had zito like Adon Jonagi A had quoted in the Benacha Aya Ku Pahoan has Agido, Bena Gloshidan Denigito, Kea, Ado Tron Denigi, Ado Nilche, Alton Benelito like Ado Hala A Nahana Nishiki Nabeho, the Nebekea A, the Ne Ka Lorigi Ilto A by Henson. a jopa beats a lahigi ilto. Ya tehigi aro kunde zan lenigi sort of in behat egi aro alton kunde salad todo sani do has twi bene lidole aro nige chine a whale chidat ehigi nasco jonago be nahat no be hasitole aro kunde hinand ani elange satahigi Dr. Boone do kunde hashke hinand ani Joanne Jane aro kunde nige ma nige yeja Crystalline Curly eilto bene lidole aro alton beslashne shigilto Bitone, Belchine, Bitoke, Benalake, and Lenigi Eilto Benelidole. Aro Code hit the ne, that's an old Agilto. Jonago Batodizindole, Equit Jonago. Nana Yat Ehigi, Na Snake Hatole. Jona has clean, Sondishne, Jona has clean, Jona has clean, Jona has clean, Jona has clean. Eche Shade.
Chaha, ado Honorable Qua, Kodo Citizen, Linigi, Kodo, Nanette based Aggie, Kodo, Nick Ain, the Nab Bay, Benin, Do Kundet, Bestate, Nanish Bestad in Inigi Shaha, Ado Nesto Shimbi Natchibin Tayaho, Eto, Ado Kone, ya not so he announcements. Any members of Resources and Development Committee that have any announcements at this point? Mr. Tahi.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, if you recall, we had a work session with BIA and the Navajo Nation Forest Department on the sequestrian. They requested to postpone and reschedule the meeting that's supposed to be scheduled for this coming Friday. So Mr. Senti from Forest Service is going to select a new date and time for them to have that meeting. Once that date and time is secured, I will notify RDC of when that meeting will take place. Madam Chair, members of RDC, that is my announcement.
Mr. Tahi. So, again, as Mr. Tahi had mentioned, members of RDC, that the discussion in regards to the carbon sequestration will be rescheduled to a later date. So just please keep your calendars open again. Any other members of Resources Development Committee with any announcements at this time? Going once, going twice. Okay, so that takes us on to item 2 on the agenda, recognizing guests and visiting officials. So at this point, I'd like to allow my colleagues of Resources Development Committee to please introduce themselves here to the individuals that are on the call here this morning. So I'll go ahead and start off with Honorable Nez.
Shila, Yat Ben Ricknez in Shiawasanishla, or Zay Kachini Bashish Chain, Sanahabit and Dashi Chado, Kia Ani A Yatashanal, Navation 1 chapter, the Hasna Aro Enia, Aro Hastango chapters, one Ashin Shigi Yaha, Chedak on Chesmani, and Nenahniza, Dot Kite East Hosakar, Dot East Deshkish.
Honorable Nez, Ado Inda Kuna. Honorable Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, member of the RDC, Yate Bendo staff, good morning. Ado Yate Bendo. Say Danny Simpson, Nalpin, Ashka, Herco, New Mexico, Dan. Out of the 8 chapters of Ashka, Herco, Yeezy, White Rock, Valley, Vicente, Crown Point, Nine Rock. Out of the Nenshini, 20 inch, especially Bush's chair. Nana, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Simpson. Adoshdeja, Nana Hadoljish, Honorable Claw, introduction.
A question. Well, I already introduced myself to everyone, but I just want to say welcome again this morning. And my name is Shauna Ann Claw, and I am the council delegate for Chinle chapter. And then also very thankful to be serving with my esteemed colleagues on RDC. And I just want to say welcome to everyone.
Thank you. Honorable Claw, Ado Shinat, Honorable Otto So. Introduction.
Good morning, members of Resource and Development Committee. This is Delegate Otto So. Yat Hadid, Madam Chair, Ado Adid, Vice Chair, Honorable Johnson, Ado Adid, Che, Honorable Nan, So Adin, Asosh Masan, Honorable Claw, Ado Da, Honorable Sampson. Ado Adid, Sinant, Nihon, Eastern Ohio members of 25th Navajo Nation Council. Eastern Ohio our audience. Auto so in Shia. Na Kaidana, Troy hit Lenin, Nanish, as a kappa, Bashishin, look at Nedas Chado, Sena Jenny, Dashinala. What are Nenslito, Tonanes, is it the Bejmas on Kunzad Shinan is not it. I don't what Slodo, Nikodo, it's been really good to hear you guys, and also Madam Chair and Honorable Claw and Honorable Johnson. So it was good to see you guys in Phoenix at the water rights meeting, and then also I know that the testimony happened yesterday for the expert witness for the population.
Honorable Otto So. Donan Kuna Eya Shiyaj, Honorable Herman Daniels, introduction.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Shema. Sahos Agi. I seen hard when members of Resources and Development Committee. Yeah, I don't so that's made so 8 by Hila. I don't should edge Shikodo Herman Daniels Jr. I don't know and Slimgate it. I don't catch it. She made us. Who had Lini that should say, Arunda, Ashkahato, Edasanala, what I cannot hit the Schneidol, let's see, Penny be Nana, Arabanas, the gate not on, or Jet, Shant Hodo, a beacon, Arunda, Nagadam, Law and Order Committee, Ajanan, Shinson. Thank you, Madam Chair. Shma, thank you.
Ashaha, Honorable Daniels. Ado Kuna I'd like to take it to the legislative team. Legal counsel, Ms. Khan, introduction last.
Morning. Good morning. Jag är annars på två helt linjer nisle, but ani bashes chain, last chair dashet chain, senator kena ada shanala akut our son nisle. Mariana Khan dashet jene. Work for the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I am very pleased to be here today and will be here to assist. Thank you.
Shahat, Ms. Khan, and then to our legislative team here, Mr. Tahi.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members present, those online. My name is Rodney Tahi. I'm the Legislative Advisor for Resource and Development Committee in County and Central Kenneth, and I'm originally from Steamboat, Arizona. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Shahat, Mr. Mose.
Madam Chair, everyone online. Jay Leonard Moses here, Twins to the net, sure.
Shahat. Then I'd like to go ahead and have Ms. April Quinn from Legislative Council also introduce herself.
Good morning, Madam Chair, honorable committee members. This is April Quinn from the Office of Legislative Counsel.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn, and then also to Ms. Sanlach the Gem of Legislative. Star 6 to unmute. Okay, so with that, I'd like to go ahead and take it to Ms. Veronica Blackhat with DOJ for introduction.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of RDC. This is Veronica Blackhat with Navajo Nation Department of Justice. Tubaja Ajisle Twatlini Bashichin, Na Kaidinachi Chiche and Kitlachini National. I'm originally from the Newcomb area and reside in Pine Hill. Thank you.
Ashaha, Ms. Black Hat, and thank you for attending the call here this morning. Next, I'd like to take it to Ms. Aniva Yazi, production.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Yate Benish Mantai, Honorable Chairwoman, Jesus, honorable members of the RDC Committee. Here, She Aniva Yaz and Shia Sinajin Inchnet, Twitch in a Bashin, 1200 Dashe, Hotsoe Dashanala, Adonle Baslade Shia, what are a Sananchna call here. And thank you.
Ms. Yazi, Mr. Calvin Castillo. Star 6 to unmute, sir. What about Mr. James Atakai? Okay, I'd like to go ahead and just take it to Ms. Curley with BIA.
Yate Bene, Chairwoman Jesus, RDC members, Tyson Olstein, Cheryl Curley, BIA, Tribal Operations Specialist, Navajo Region. And I do note that carbon sequestration meeting has been rescheduled, and I'll continue to work with Mr. Tahi on that piece and its coordination. Yeah.
Ms. Curley, and thank you for that. And next, I'd like to go ahead and have Mr. Marty Ashley with NTUA introduce himself.
Government liaison, so it's not the NTUA, but not what the net cut sheeting, Shido, a shame, but this chin, not in the chair, for the chin is another. We are taking this, on of talk.
Mr. Ashley. So with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, I'd like to take it on to item 3 on the agenda for reviewing and approving the agenda. So if I could have Mr. Tahi read the proposed agenda into the record.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, the proposed agenda reads as follows. Resource and Development Committee of the 25th Navajo Nation Council, regular meeting Wednesday, June 14th, 2023, 10 a.m. Presiding Honorable Brenda Jesus, Chairperson. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, Vice Chairperson. Location Navajo Nation Land Department and via telecommunications. 1, call meeting to order, roll call, invocation, and announcement. 2, recognizing guests and visiting officials. 3, reviewing and approving the agenda. 4, reviewing and approving the journal, May 31st, 2023, regular meeting. 5, receiving report. A, report from Navajo Housing Authority on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program as it relates to the utility assistance for Navajos past due amounted to Navajo Utility Tribal Authority, an overview of the funding concerns as it relates to debt ceiling funds. B, report from the Division of Community Development on the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, project as it relates to the IDIQ contract status. C, update report from the Navajo Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit on the direction from the 24th Navajo Nation Council's Committee, 24th RDC Resource and Development Committee to research and draft a lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Interior as it relates to Chaco Canyon. Executive session. 6, old business, none. 7, new business. 8, legislation 0106-23, an action relating to Resource and Development Committee, concurring to the appointment of Tom Ranger to serve on the management board of the Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise, sponsor Honorable Seth Damon. B, issuance of a directive to the Navajo Division of Transportation to get on the agenda for the agency council to provide an oral and written report about the road construction, road improvements, and in-depth partnership with federal, state, and county governments. C, approving the Resource and Development Committee's regular meeting to be held in person at Cameron Chapter in Cameron, Arizona for Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Navajo Nation time. D, approving a leadership meeting with Navajo Transitional Energy Company to conduct a site tour on traveling to the northern mines in Montana and Wyoming for Monday, June 24th through Wednesday, June 26th, 2023. E, approving to cancel the Resource and Development Committee's regular meeting on Wednesday, June 26th, 2023 due to the Navajo Transition Energy Company tour of the northern mines and scheduling a special meeting for Friday, July 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. 8, close the meeting, announcements and adjournment. Madam Chair, members of RDC, that is the proposed agenda read into the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Tahi. Members of Resources and Development Committee, may I get a motion for the proposed agenda that was just read into the record?
Motion by Otto So.
May I get a second?
Second.
Honorable Simpson, thank you. And members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any questions in regards to the proposed agenda here before us today for our regular meeting? For going once, going twice? With that, Mr. Tahi, please take a roll call vote.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for reviewing and approving the agenda. Honorable Shawna Enclaw, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Shawna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Madam Chair, 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. With that, members, motion carries. Going on to item 4 on the agenda, reviewing and approving journals from May 31st, 2023, regular Resources and Development Committee meeting. Members of RDC, may I get a motion for May 31st journal?
Motion.
Honorable Nez, and then second by Honorable Simpson. With that, members of Resources and Development Committee, the journals was emailed out by the Legislative Services staff, and I believe there has been ample and adequate time for review. With that, I do not know if any of the members on RDC have any questions on May 31st journal. Going once, going twice, take a roll call vote.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for reviewing and approving the journal. Honorable Shawna Enclaw, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Shawna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
Vote green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Mr. Tahi. Going on to item number 5 on the agenda, receiving reports. I do have letter A. I do have, Miss,
Madam Chair.
Honorable Nez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to motion that we suspend the floor rules and go directly to new business because item C under reports is going to take some time. And I believe we can take care of new business first.
With that, members of Resources and Development Committee, we do have a motion on the floor to suspend floor rules to take care of item 7, new business on the agenda. May I get a second?
Second.
Honorable Simpson. Do we have any questions on this motion that was made by Honorable Nez, members of Resources and Development Committee? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Mr. Tahi, can you please take a roll call vote?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for suspending the floor rules to go to new business. Honorable Shawna Enclaw, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Shawna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Here, green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
With that, motion carries. Going on to item number 7 on the approved agenda. New business, letter A, we do have legislation number 0106-23. Do we have the sponsor on the call, Mr. Honorable Seth Damon? If you are Honorable Damon, *6 to unmute. Going once. Honorable Seth Damon, are you on the call? Going twice. Going 3 times. With that, we will go ahead and go on to item B on the agenda. Issuance of a directive to the Navajo Division of Transportation, NDOT, to get on the agendas for the agency councils to provide an oral and written report about the road constructions, road improvement, and NDOT partnership with federal, state, and county governments. Members of RDC, may I get a motion on item B?
All motion.
Honorable Nez, thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Honorable Simpson. And, members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any questions on this directive to Navajo Division of Transportation in regards to reporting to our constituents and elected officials at the 5 agency council meetings that happen on a quarter basis? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tahi.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, let me read into the record the directive that's going to be issued to the Division of Transportation.
Okay.
Title II citation, 2, in NC Section 189B, committee directives shall be limited to matters under such committee's direct oversight and shall be approved by a simple majority vote of all committee members. All approved directives shall be memorialized in writing and signed by the presiding officer and provided to the office of the president and affected division director within 3 calendar days of the committee approval. Directive to the Navajo Nation Division of Transportation. The Navajo Nation Division of Transportation shall contact agency councils to request to be on the agenda to provide oral and written reports concerning road construction, road improvements, and NDOT partnership with the federal, state, and county governments on these issues. Madam Chair, members of RDC, that is the directive read into the record. Back to you, Madam Chair.
So with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, we do have the directive that was read out by Mr. Tahi. I don't know if we have any questions at this point or any recommendations. Going once. Going, Honorable Otto So.
Yes, I believe this directive is to get these reports at the agency council. But what I'm getting to is that I think that if we put in the chapters too, that way they can have that directive with the chapters too to provide reports, because at the local level, and what I'm getting to is that our executive branch, they are the body that executes these projects. They play that executing role. But what I'm getting to is we need to have this directive done at the chapter level too, so that they could provide these reports there. That way, my honorable delegates, a lot of questions are asked about roads in different regions, particularly in my area. And I don't have control over NDOT's construction timeline. And that way, it's coming from the horse's mouth. They get direct and straight information. So that's all I'm asking, is that can we add in the language to modify, to insert all 110 chapters. That way, it's on NDOT's radar, and that direct one-on-one communication is going on with the chapters. Thank you very much. That's going to be my ask, to modify, to insert the chapters as well. Thank you.
Honorable Otto So. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and give it to Honorable Nez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aro colleagues, koro nahat hanagiro raisnatsanagi. When I go attend the Northern Agency Council meeting, NDOT already provides a report to the Northern Agency Council chapters, which is approximately 19 chapters. And I believe they do that to each of the agency council meetings. And then each delegate is more than welcome to ask for a report for their chapters within their district. I get mine at least quarterly from Northern Agency by Ms. Begay from NDOT. All my 6 chapters meet at one place, and NDOT does provide a report sometimes all day. So I just want to let you guys know that Northern Agency does get a report already. And as delegates, we do get our regional delegate reports from NDOT as well.
Honorable Nez, for adding your information sharing to the dialogue. Honorable Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of RDC staff, Delegate tonight. Good morning, Nana. And how record stated here, the language here, I support that, going off what Mr. Honorable Delegate has stated, and I support this the way it is right now. So, if it is right now, I support that. So, anybody say, yeah.
Okay, Honorable Simpson, for your recommendation as well. So, going back to this particular directive, Shanatani no Senigi on Resources and Development Committee, a legislation So let me go ahead and allow some time over to Honorable Shauna Claw. In regards to this particular directive, with your district, are you being provided reports by NDOT for any ongoing or proposed road project construction or improvements?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, Shada Otto. Thank you to my colleagues for their input. And then I too agree with Shana, Honorable Rick Nez. For Central Agency, Mr. Garrett Silversmith does provide a report during the Chinle Agency Council. And so during the council meetings, we have all of the chapter leadership that are in attendance. During that time, Mr. Silversmith gives an update according to how NDOT is working in the area. And then if any chapters have any recommendations, or if they have any projects that they would like to see worked on, Mr. Silversmith does offer them that assistance. And so I too agree. I do reach out to NDOT when needed. So I have no problems in getting information, but that would be my recommendation, is just I'm in support of the directive. I feel like they are already doing that portion, but maybe some chapters and other agencies maybe they do need a little more attention. but I am good with central agency, and I know NDOT responded well during the flooding. So they were one of the first ones and the last ones to leave the site. So I am very appreciative of NDOT. So with that, Shada, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Hakoshi Eshaha, Honorable Claw. And again, I just wanted to state, members of Resources and Development Committee, the purpose of this current directive was, we all know that at the RDC meeting 2 weeks ago at Vicente Chapter, one of our honorable colleagues on the 25th Navajo Nation Council had brought a legislation before Resources and Development Committee to create a task force. So with that, since Resources and Development Committee had the oversight through the title codes that Resources and Development Committee members had requested withdrawal of the legislation by our honorable colleague. So with that, again, this is just for reassurance, and again, we know that Mr. Garrett Silversmith is tasked as a division director for NDOT, but he does have a team that oversees the construction and road maintenance area in several departments under the division. So I believe with that intent, it was requested to go ahead and proceed with this issuance of this directive. And again, members of Resources and Development Committee, we also had our honorable colleague, Mr. Honorable Otto So, that had requested to add a language in also, I guess, directing the 110 chapters to also provide these reports at the agency council meeting. I am not really certain as to how members of RDC thinks about this particular recommendation by Honorable Otto So, since this directive is specifically to Navajo Nation Department of Transportation. Maybe another directive, and this would just be my recommendation, is to have one with Division of Community Development through the ASC Administrative Service Center Office Department Manager to hopefully make that directive through them and filter it down to the chapters, and that would be the other recommendation. So again, I just wanted to put that out. So at this point, it is an agreement, Honorable Otto So, that we're going to go ahead and keep the language as is and possibly look at a different directive that will pretty much be just tailored to the chapters. So with that, Honorable Otto So, are you okay with that?
I am okay with that too. And it's again, this is just trying to get we shouldn't have to be doing directives, get the administration to do certain things. It should be in the plan indirectly. And to come down to something of this nature is just something that tells you that there's more work that needs to be done, information that needs to be provided to the general public. A lot of it is that we're not the road planners, we're not the road highway engineers, nor if it's in community development, we're not the manager that manages the housing program. And we get these questions, and indirectly the administration should be able to provide indirect consultation with the 110 chapters, because the reason why I use the term consultation is that the chapters are sub-governments. We really look at it, Title II really, the code really does not, they don't have an oversight. Chapter oversight is not from the judicial branch, the executive branch, or the legislative branch. But again, the executive branch is providing that indirect service. So, so that we could keep them on track. Thank you very much.
The recommendation right now, I'd like to go ahead and give it to Mr. Honorable Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going off again, members of the Resource Committee, Madam Chair, just a recommendation to colleagues here. Perspective is probably just, so I'd like to make a request to Mayor Khan, maybe work with NDOT to incorporate this similar language in the government, unless it's amended by the committee or the council. What do you say that? That'll be very stronger in that way. Chapters and with that recommendation, again, I do support this. Dave and Adi say,
Bushy? Yeah, so Resources and Development Committee, the recommendation here by Honorable Danny Simpson is to look at modifying with making amendments of adding language provision to the current plan of operation for Nauvoo Department of Transportation to input language provision that would be sharing information at the chapter level with honorable delegates and also at agency councils from Navajo Nation Land Department. So I'd like to go ahead and ask Ms. Khan if that would be something that Resources and Development Committee can look into amending plan of operation for NDOT. Ms. Khan?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the Resources and Development Committee is oversight for for NDOT, and any plans of operation amendments would come to the Resources and Development Committee. The way I usually get amendments to plans of operation is when the departments or divisions provide that language, the underlines and overstrikes of plans of operation. Underlining means new language, overstriking means deleting particular language. I wait for that document and it becomes an exhibit to the legislation. The attorneys that work with Department of Transportation, which is under the executive branch, is the Department of Justice attorneys assigned to that particular division. And I don't so much work with them, but I ask them how far along they are with their amendment and if it's ready. I would, for amending the plan of operation, I defer to the Department of Justice in that manner. And there are times when, if Resources and Development Committee is getting pushback, then I step in, but I don't see this as that particular situation. I am sure the Department of Justice can work with their client with this particular request, unless they find it is controversial and they need to have a discussion. I don't see that this is, and I see myself as waiting for that document with a sponsorship by a member of this committee for amending the plan of operation. Information I would share with you at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, for that advisement in regards to provision to plan of operation for NDOT. Now, with that, I guess this would be a task going forward to see if we can collaborate with Department of Justice and NDOT to start seeking language provision to their plan of operation, Mr. Tahi. So we'll go ahead and get that noted to Natani Honorable Simpson. So with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any other questions on this current directive for NDOT? Going once, going twice. Okay, so we do have the next task outlined with some recommendations that were made for chapters and also language provision to plan of operation for NDOT, and eventually that will be forthcoming to be on the agenda at a future RDC meeting. So again, Mr. Tahi, if you can go ahead and take roll call on item B.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for 7B on the issues of the directive. Honorable Sana Nkwa, how do you vote?
I vote green. Thank you.
Honorable Shauna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto Stowe, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Otto Stowe votes green. Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Yeah. With that, members of Resources Development Committee, motion carries on to item C on the agenda, approving the Resources and Development Committee regular meeting to be held in person at Cameron Chapter in Cameron, Arizona for Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 10 o'clock a.m. Navajo Nation time. Members of RDC, may I get a motion?
Motion by Otto Stowe.
Yeah, and may I get a second? Members of RDC, may I get a second on this?
Second,
RDC?
Shauna Enclaw.
Yeah. Members of RDC, do we have any questions on this, in-person RDC meeting slated to be at Cameron Chapter in Cameron, Arizona for June 28th, 2023? Mr. Tahi?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, just to provide additional clarification on this, when I spoke with Cameron Chapter, their internet is not as reliable as it should be. So I'm encouraging members that we do have the quorums there, or that's the reason I put in person on this agenda. Their internet capability is with HughesNet, so if it's windy or cloudy, the internet's gonna go in and out, and we're gonna lose connectivity, and we're gonna lose quorum. In addition, this is part of, the recommendation and direction from Honorable Simpson that we go and visit the chapters. As we know, we're starting from the east, so next week we'll have our regular RDC meeting somewhere in this vicinity. Then we'll go out to our Cameron as we make our way around the Navajo Nation. Madam Chair, members of RDC, thank you.
Mr. Tahi, for that clarification. So again, members of Resources and Development Committee, it was mentioned that, due to low internet connectivity at the Cameron Chapter, that we would need to be, there in person and to have quorum by 10 o'clock a.m. Navajo Nation time. So so if there are no other questions or comments regarding item C, I'd like to go ahead and request for a roll call vote. Mr. Tahi?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for 7C, approving an RDC meeting out in Cameron Chapter. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Shauna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto Stowe, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Otto Stowe votes green. Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. With that, motion carries on to item D on the agenda, approving a leadership meeting with Navajo Transitional Energy Company to conduct a site tour on traveling to the northern mines in Montana and Wyoming on Monday, July the 24th to Wednesday, July the 26th, 2023. May I get a motion, for this particular leadership meeting? Honorable Nez motions. May I get a second?
Second.
Shauna Enclaw.
Honorable Simpson, second. So members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any questions on this site tour that will be conducted with Navajo Transitional Energy Authority the end of July? Honorable Nez?
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues. I'm not sure about the leadership meeting, because we're gonna be off the nation, and I think it's more of a tour than a leadership meeting. So just a correction there to this, question for approval of this tour.
Thank you, Honorable Nez and again, you do bring up a good point. So with that, Mr. Tahi, again, in this particular approved agenda, we'd like to strike over, I guess, the leadership meeting language, and it'll just be a site tour. Agushi? All right, so with that, any other questions or recommendations? Members of RDC? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Roll call vote, Mr. Tahi.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for 7D, approving a site tour of Intech Northern Mines in Montana and Wyoming. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Shauna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. With that, motion carries. On to letter, item E, approving to cancel Resources and Development Committee's regular meeting on Wednesday, July 26, 2023, due to Navajo Transitional Energy Company, tour of the Northern Mines and scheduling a special meeting for Friday, July the 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Members of Resources Development Committee, may I get a motion to cancel the, scheduled July 26 RDC meeting?
Motion.
Honorable Nez. Members of RDC, may I get a second? Honorable Simpson. So with that, members of RDC, do we have any questions on the regular scheduled RDC meeting for July the 26th due to site tour with NTEC, with the mines up in the mines, one in Wyoming and Montana? So with that, meeting will be carried to Friday, July the 28th. Going once, going twice. Mr. Tahi, can you please take roll call vote?
And Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for 7E, canceling RDC's regular meeting for Wednesday, July 26th, and scheduling a special meeting for Friday, July 28th. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Shauna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote? Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Tahi. With that, we go back to item number 5 on the agenda with receiving reports. Letter A, report from Navajo Housing Authority on the emergency rental assistance program as it relates to the utility assistance for Navajo's past amount to Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, and overall, an overview of the funding concerns as it relates to debt ceiling funds. And I do see Ms. Aniva Yazi, who is the interim Chief Executive Officer with Navajo Housing Authority, on the call. And so at this point, so with that, Ms. Yazi, we're going to go ahead and allot you 20 minutes for your presentation. And members of Resources and Development Committee, I did also request a Navajo Tribal Utility Authority to be present, as well as it relates to the utility emergency assistance program with funds that are coming from Navajo Housing Authority. So with that, right now, I just wanted to just make that known. Honorable Danny Simpson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the RDC here, they know tonight. Madam Chair, I know we were in Washington last week, Monday through Thursday. Report was given to no, yet. I'm not
Thank
sure how that's gonna work, because so it's given to them, I guess there were some directives that were maybe some directives were given to, EHA and 2A. So I believe that this has already been taken care of by EHA. So I'm not sure why, I know we're oversight, and if we were here, I believe we would have heard this report first. But since the EHA, as a whole, and minus four delegates, they're working in DC, I'm not sure why we will be hearing this, because I believe the EHA heard it, and I just wonder why we're gonna be hearing this also under the EHA heard it. I'm just throwing that out there, Madam Chair.
Takushi? Yeah, and that is a good question, Honorable Simpson. A couple of weeks ago, and this is before I've seen that, the report was put on the NABI agenda, I did reach out to, interim, Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Aniva Yazzie, as it was, a concern, chairing the Resources and Development Committee, because right now, we know that there is a high dollar amount of outstanding, debt by our, end users of utility to, Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. And I know that, Navajo Housing Authority had allotted some funds through the Indian Housing Block Grant Program, as well as the Grant Indian Housing, Plan, funding. And at that time, I don't know what directives were given from NABI to both of the, enterprises in regards to how to rectify the issue and to expend these dollars. So, with that, I don't know if Honorable Nez Shinatani, if you were in attendance at NABI, because we requested to be excused, if you can just give us an update on the directives that was given from NABI. Then maybe if we feel like we still need to continue with this report, then we will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I'm not sure if we should motion first or second, or if we could just, I don't know if it's appropriate, Ms. Khan, for us to have this discussion to move the report forward.
Yeah.
The, a valid point is brought up by your question of this topic. Motion in the second. And, go from there. I don't know whether you're talking about amending your agenda to remove it. It sounds like we've got some aspects of removing. The other is to amend your agenda, to have, not your, like you're having a discussion of whether to amend the agenda. Your colleagues are authorized to have a discussion, and they don't need to necessarily be on the agenda for the discussion. But, I do believe the topic is on the discussion, and this all kind of goes together. Now that I think about it, it is, the subject matter is on the agenda, and and with regard to the fullness of it, maybe, the discussion to amend the agenda to take off portions of it and just get the directives. If I'm hearing a concern about learning about what the directives are that were given, perhaps just, center it just on the directives that were given at NABI, as opposed to the whole report, and maybe accept the written report that appears to be on the screen. You could accept the written report and then ask questions with regard to directives. I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible. It does seem like the topic is there, and you are discussing it, and accept the report and then start asking particular to directives.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Honorable Simpson?
I don't want to get in discussion on this. I'm not trying to get in discussion. I'm trying to get this RDC to hear it, or since you heard this whole report from NHA and NTA. I'm just trying to get to that point. I'm not trying to get into discussion of this. What we'll be talking about. I guess before we get in discussion, we kind of just ask what directives were given from NHA. Once we go into this, that's what I think we should just hear. What was decided from the NHA when we go into this report, then we'll motion it. That's my recommendation, Madam Chair.
So with that,
Madam,
Honorable Ned, you have the floor.
I strongly believe that since you guys weren't on the call, just a brief summation would do that. You're good.
So with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, again, with this particular presentation from NHA and also Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, we're going to go ahead and proceed with getting a synopsis report from both enterprises. So if I may get a motion to get this report from NHA and Navajo Housing Authority, members of Resources and Development Committee. Okay, let's do the report. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and allot time first to Ms. Aniva Yazzie, the interim Chief Executive Officer, in regards to the Emergency Utility Assistance Program. So, Ms. Yazzie, you do have the floor for 10 minutes, and I also like to allot Navajo Tribal Utility Authority the other 10 minutes. That will equal 20 minutes for this presentation.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Honorable Chairwoman Jesus Ajeje. You can hear me? Just a sound check?
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Very good. So you see on the screen, I will be very brief, utilizing that 10 minutes. So the subject line on that report too, I think just a correction, a report from NHA on the Emergency Utility Assistance Program and not rental assistance, and I'll make some distinctions on that. But so this is the NHA Emergency Utility Assistance Programs. And I think most of you may recall or backtracking some date lines because this is a new administration and new council delegates, new 25th Navajo Nation Council. So just some background in terms of the terminologies and what the funding sources are, because there appears to be some confusion out in the world of our Navajo Nation. So back in September, this first grant is going to be the 2023 Indian Housing Block Grant. So that grant, the board approved a $10 million funding for the Emergency Utility Assistance Program with NTUA directly as the sole utility supplier needing that assistance, because NTUA approached NHA with regard to the need. So back in September 25th, the board, so our processes is what's outlining here, is that when a request comes to NHA, the use of these funds are all contained in the Indian Housing Plan. So if it's not contained in there for funding, we have to go to the board for approval. So the board approved the resolution in September 2022. Subsequent to those resolutions, this Indian Housing Plan, because NHA is a federally funded entity with this oversight agency being the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, kind of changes or additions for the use of these funds. So that was submitted to HUD. HUD approved this in November of 2022, the determined that compliant, that included this, we call it the EUAP as an acronym program. So the Emergency Utility Assistance Program was approved. Once it gets approved, we go through NEPA for environmental release of funds. We have to have environmental clearance. So that requires some internal processes with DOJ and the President's office to sign off on the release of funds before we can even obligate or spend these dollars. So that process took place in December. So come December, we commenced the meetings with NTUA. Orlando Pete and Gerard Curley were the two entities primarily that we worked with in terms of giving the overview of the requirements that HUD has with regard to income qualifications. Again, We don't write the rules, but any use of these funds, they have to assist low income as defined by HUD, and then non-low income as defined by HUD. And so, and all the supporting documentation that's contained therein. So those meetings commenced December. To this day, we're having these bi-weekly and sometimes weekly meetings. And to date, we have a total funds drawdown of 3.46 million of the 10 million to NTUA. And so I have an attachment I'll show you shortly that shows the individual disbursements. So what NTUA has done is they're compiling their customers and screening them for this eligibility rule that HUD prescribes. And we have to follow through because that information we need to have on file so that we can request for the funds drawdown from HUD. So HUD does review these submittals of requests. And so we have the disbursements that we've identified, and I'll show that shortly because that's another page. So that's with the IHBG grant. Now we have another grant called CARES, right? This is the COVID-19 related CARES grant. Out of that grant, another $10 million was set aside for the Emergency Utility Assistance Program, only this time for non-NTUA utility suppliers. So these are going to be those suppliers that provide electric and water to our families on the reservation that are not NTUA. These are like Hamas Electric, Gallup Utility Authority, Continental Divide, Socorro Utility, SRP, and APS. So there was a request by former delegate Mark Freeland at the time asking about consideration for other families that aren't served by NTUA. And so the decision made by the then CEO Maureen Curley was to also allow an equivalent amount of consideration of funding. And so that funding was sought under CARES for low income and non-low income. This CARES grant is also overseen by the HUD office out of the Phoenix, in Phoenix, Arizona. And so the same process pretty much is mimicked here. Again, with that same consideration was considered by the board. They approved it in September for an additional $10 million. So this is where the confusion is, I think, out in the public here on our reservation. HUD had to approve the amended CARES IHP, which they did in January of 2023, and release of funds. We cleared that in February. And then and in this case, with the non-NTUA utility supplier, those utility companies are not willing to perform the screening of eligibility, whereas NTUA did. NTUA has that information. So they're asking NHA to do the screening. So for us to do the screening, we have to adopt a policy. And so we put together the policy, the process and procedures, and how we're going to administer this program. That policies are approved by the board because they are the policy-making body for NHA. And so it went before the board approved it in March of 2022. So since April to present day, NHA staff through the Housing Management Division, led by Ms. Priscilla Cadman, is implementing this program. And the contact was made with all non-NTUA suppliers, as I mentioned. And so to date, only $3,836 have been drawn from the funding thus far. That proved to be a little bit more difficult and complicated in terms of the outreach to the various entities that stretch all borderlines of our reservation, including the satellite areas of Rama, Alamo, and Tahajale. So I'll show those drawdowns in just a bit. So that's moving forward. I don't know, I believe though, we don't have the need of 10 million for the non-NTUA suppliers, but that remains to be seen. But those are decisions made by the past leadership and then approved by the past Navajo Nation. That's it with regard to the Emergency Utility Assistance Program. We'll show the profile shortly in a little bit in terms of drawdowns. The second one was a request to provide an overview of the debt ceiling bill that was passed recently and signed by President Biden and some of the impacts to the NHA programs. So as we reviewed the bill that was signed, there are three programs that stand out with regard to NHA, funding. So two of them are from the U.S. Department of Treasury, not the HUD block grant programs, but Treasury. Treasury's Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the ERAP, as we all know, had a balance of 68 million. So just a quick overview. In March of 2021, NHA was awarded 96 million by U.S. Treasury, and this was the first grant approved for tribes for this assistance program. And then in September, though, so March 2021, Treasury started the program and allocated to the recipients. September 30th of 2022, 18 months later, was the deadline already for ERAP. That was already set by regulation, law and regulation. So NHA spent 28 million during that time as of that deadline, September 30th. So that left 68 million unspent and unobligated, with attempts to try to request Congress for further extension that had not been granted to date. And so because of that, this rescission of funding that's identified in the debt ceiling bill will affect ERAP. And so as of June 8th, a few days ago, I received a letter from Treasury requesting the remittance of the balance of those funds. And so they identified a mechanism in which to remit those funds. And so we're in the process of reviewing that, consulting with our SLONAP office, HUD office, to make sure it's done appropriately. The second pot of funding that was going to be impacted was a small business paycheck protection program that NHA apparently applied for in May of 2020. This is another U.S. Treasury program. NHA apparently requested a $2.6 million loan to pay for hazard pay. I think at the time there were some essential workers that needed to be paid. And so that was secured and approved by SBA. The loan forgiveness period lapsed, and so we ascertained that NHA, though, is still eligible for about 60% of that loan amount for forgiveness. So we've generated that information and submitted it to SBA. As of April, it's still pending. And otherwise, there's no request yet from U.S. Treasury on whether or not that loan can be forgiven and or canceled, and repayment is then due possibly. So that's about $1.6 million that could be forgiven. If not, the entire loan would have to be forgiven. So we're communicating with Treasury with respect to that. CARES unobligated balance is the largest program, though, here that's under in the rescission bill. That with NHA, there's a $14.5 million balance with the CARES grant. So in March 2020, NHA was awarded $22 million. $7.5 million have been spent to date, with the remainder of the $14.5 million. So I just want to talk about that $14.5 million that's unspent or unobligated. 10 million of that is this what we're talking about, the Emergency Utility Assistance Program, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll kind of bring this back up. We talked about the 10 million under the CARES Emergency Utility Assistance. So that could possibly be affected. We don't know yet. We had a meeting with the Southwest Office of HUD here in Phoenix, asking them for further guidance, and they could not offer any because they have not heard from the HUD office in DC, though they are expecting some guidance or word from the Washington, DC HUD office. And so until then, we are looking at, we're left with working with the utility companies on the unobligated balance. So we are still awaiting that guidance from HUD with regard to CARES. Madam Chair, members of the RDC committee, that would conclude my overview with respect to these two subject line items pursuant to your agenda. I stand ready for any questions you may have. Otherwise, I'll yield to NTUA for the remaining time of this presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Yali, for that general overview of the funding in regards to the utility emergency assistance. Right now, I'd like to allot the remainder of the time to Mr. Ashley in regards to NTUA's current outstanding, I guess what we want to hear as Resources and Development Committee is this funding that came from NHA, and just where is NTUA having some barriers as to trying to get, payments out, because I know that there's a big outstanding amount due to, how many of our customers under, into UA that have outstanding amounts, and how can, since we do have NHA on the call here, is there any way that we could speed up the process, to where we can get this payment turnaround time at a faster rate, or, so just give us an overview of your current process and how the documents go to Navajo, Housing Authority, and so, that's what we'd like to hear.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yatesh Nantai, Madam Chair and Resources and Development Committee members. Was a report, like, Delegate Simpson had mentioned, there was a report that was given to the Navigate Committee, last week on Thursday. And Orlando Pete with the Finance Office, he's the one that gave that report. And so I would like to turn that time back over to him, and, perhaps he can just summarize, just the highlights of the report that was provided to the Navigate Committee meeting, last week. I'd like to turn that over to Mr. Pete.
Okay, Mr. Pete, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to see you. It was a brief overview of the program and the progress that we've seen through administering this program. It was very similar to what we've presented to RDC a month ago. April. Yeah. So the format was very similar. We answered many general questions. They didn't provide any directives at the conclusion of our report. But to respond to the questions that you raised today, the largest barrier, perhaps roadblock that we're seeing, is the lack of response from some of our customers. When we analyze this, we see that there are still 68% of our past due customers that have not applied for the program. That's the biggest challenge now, is collecting applications to support this program. As far as speeding up the process, we have not seen or experienced any delays from NHA. So the process for us to collect and facilitate the application process, it is very lengthy. But the due diligence that we're taking, I think, shows when we give these applications to NHA, because they're able to turn around about a review of 200 applications in about a day and a half. Then after that, they request the most recent invoices to then submit to their finance team for drawdown. So the NHA process has been very, very quick. Most of the roadblocks that we're experiencing is the volume of applications that we have to review, and then just the due diligence that we have to take in order to provide very clean applications to NHA. But we have received a 3.1 million of the 10 million, and then I did get notice that there's an additional about 307 that's been submitted to their finance team for drawdown. And then to put this in context, when I analyzed the payouts that we've received from the LIHEAP office, so Department of Social Services, for the same time frame that we've administered our program, they've been able to pay out, I think, about 557,000 versus the 3.1 that we've done. So that's a testament, I think, to the due diligence that we've employed through this, but also to the support that NHA has given us, because they were very supportive at the very beginning of this. So we had very clear outlines of what was required, and then the turnaround that they've been able to provide for paying these out has been also a testament to the success that we've seen so far. But yeah, we're available for questions if you have any.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pete, and also Ms. Yazzie for your report. With that, members of a Resources and Development Committee, may I get a motion to accept the report from Navajo Housing Authority and Navajo Tribal Utility Authority? Vice Chair Johnson, may I get a second? Honorable Simpson. So members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any questions on the information that was shared with Resources and Development Committee in regards to the Emergency Utility Assistance Program that are a collaboration or partnership effort between NHA and NTUA?
Comment, Madam Chair.
Honorable Simpson?
Comment, talked about this at this, again, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the RDC, again, Presenter Neva Yazzie, Johnson. Thank you for your, very frustrating. I'm looking at the timeline here. He stated that, the problems they're having is collecting application. I understand their point of ETA customers, also with non-ETA customers. It's taking implemented, and customers telling each other, "Yeah, apply for it. It's taking. I'm still waiting 2 months, 3 months, 4 months." And relatives are telling each other that, "I'm still waiting." That's why there's lack of people application for assistance. I'm just looking at this right here, and it says, on the CARE grant, 10 million emergency utility assistance program, NHA, non-NHA utility suppliers. Board approved resolution 5120-2021, $10 million. Interesting. Why? No policy will have to be put in place. Happy had money that was approved. NHA policy implementation and present 321. I don't know if there's a typo, but this is 321-23. I think it says 22 on here. But board approved resolution 5149-2023. Here's emergency utility assistance program policy. There's a 7 months with the policy. $10 million was approved for the utility assistance program. You come with the policy 4 months later. Very interesting, because right now, the way it was presented to the Navajo people, you apply, something's going to happen with they, how much percentage of applicants were to these NTA or non-NTAs. We took a lot of heat. After when that application was going to be approved by utilities. Stuck up for EHA, and now looking at this right here, $10 million was approved in September. The policy was not approved in March. What happens when 6 or 7 months under NHA, Navajo Housing Authority? Now, I wish I would have got this information. The policy is still being worked on for non-NHA suppliers. We could tell our constituents still working on the policy, but we just kept going back to the chapter meeting and stating that, yeah, it's forthcoming, they'll pay it. Now we're hearing right now today, the policy was not approved until March. Frustrating. When this first was being, proposed and being given the education to our community members. What time frame has been put in there? I know on the application say, you'll be waiting 1 to 2 months. To have your application approved and this was presented. Again, going back, that's the reason why our Navajo people are not flying. Because they're telling each other, I applied for it, nothing has been done. So, Madam Chair, members of RDC, I don't need a response back, I think. Without frustration.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Simpson, for, voicing your concern in regards to the timeline of a response back to our constituents in regards to applications that were submitted by our constituents through the non-NTUA providers in regards to application submission and getting a response back to our constituents, and hope that they get their application approved. And wanted to, if I can at this point, give the gavel over to Vice Chair Johnson.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you for that. Let's start questions from honorable RDC colleagues. Sure.
Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson. So again, I just want to thank NTUA, Mr. Pete, and also Ms. Yazzie for giving us information. And this has brought a concern to me, especially when I always often hear that NXA is not doing anything for our constituents in the greater part of the Navajo Nation. But at this point, I know that there has to be the due diligence when these federal dollars get down to the Navajo Nation enterprises or even the Navajo Nation government. So with that, I know that through your report, Ms. Yazzie, you did indicate that there has been a process that has been put in place to screen the applications at the request of the non-NTUA utility providers that are located across Navajo Nation. Now, in regards to that, it is a concern, as just what Mr. Honorable Simpson had mentioned. There are families right now that are being disconnected, not just with NTUA, but other NTUA providers, whom had mentioned that they have submitted applications and there is no word back from either NHA, in this case for non-utility, NTUA utility providers, nor NTUA. So with that, I'm requesting, since we have NTUA and NHA here on the call, that we need to offer a better customer services to our constituents out in the greater part of the Navajo Nation. I do understand that there is lack of response back to our constituents to where whether their application is pending or it's still being in the review process, or whether they're even, denied. But at this point, there's ripple effects from this. We all learn and understand that Navajo Tribal Utility Authority has the third-party power purchase agreement in place. So with a lot of our customers under NTUA not paying their monthly bills, and I understand some of them owe outstanding amounts going into the thousands of dollars, then NTUA is using their own capital, the liquid capital that they have to pay the third-party power purchase agreement. So in this case, NTUA is missing out, and what are we trying to get across? So I don't know if there needs to be a more better or aggressive approach to social marketing to get more of this information out to a lot of our constituents. And if our constituents just across the board can qualify for this program, instead of having to screen them, but, just taking every application to say that, okay, we'll go ahead and pay off your utility bill, by this certain date of whatever was outstanding. I don't know the methodology that, the enterprises have in place, so, for that reason being, there are a lot of, constituents contacting me now, and I just want to, just hear a little bit more from Navajo Housing Authority in regards to the turnaround time on their applications. I know NTUA has been diligently trying to work, but it's our customers, and maybe as leadership, we need to share this back with our constituents at the local level within chapter meetings and just spreading the word, but I think we need more mass media, information sharing. So, Ms. Yazzie, I'd like to ask, with this policy that was set in place for screening by Navajo Housing Authority, what is the actual turnaround time for a constituent to get a response, if they are a non-NTUA utility provider for their application requesting for utility assistance? Back to you, Madam, Vice Chair, Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gonna go to, Yazzie for response.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Johnson, and then Akeha, Honorable Delegate Ms. Jesus, with respect to your question. So I'm gonna put things in context real quickly so everybody understands. When the discussion came up from the Navajo Nation Council and the Office of the President back in September of 2022, we had been informed that there was a huge volume of disconnect notices, and that really was the subject, disconnect notices. So they were on the cusp of disconnection at that moment in time. So it was an emergency even at that point. And it's unfortunate that NHA, because these are federal dollars, and we don't write the rules, but there's a process prescribed by HUD before any penny can be obligated or spent. That's just the nature of the federal funds that NHA has always been exposed to since it was created. And so we're subject to HUD review and so forth. But anyway, so it was disconnect notices. And at the time, Mark Freeland said then at the time, we have disconnect notices for non-NTUA suppliers too in Kishon. How are we going to help with those families? Not knowing what that universe or volume of impacted families for non-NTUA, a decision was made by leadership to just make an equal allocation. So the process is different for the NTUA, and then the process is different for non-NTUA. So the onus here was to pay for those families subject to disconnect notices. So those are immediate payments that need to be made. When NHA looked at this other source of CARES at the time, the board has to approve it. The board is the authority for all of the funding approval of these activities. HUD then has to review it. HUD has to give us its blessing. Believe it or not, we can't even obligate, we can't even meet because that's expending bodies and expending time and resources and dollars. So we have to wait until we get a release of funds once HUD's approved the compliance. So, and once that's done, we need then we can do that policy, because HUD could come back and say, deny it for whatever reason. So we can't jump the gun and try to do this earlier advised by HUD. So the process still needs to be abided by. So the process for the non-NTUA utility suppliers, there's no real application other than to work with the utility companies directly. They would just give us a listing of those customers that are subject to disconnect, and that's whom Priscilla Cadman is working with in that regard. And so, and all we're doing is providing the application for income determination. Again, this is an income-based program that we administer. It's always been that way until the law changes. Honorable Vice Chair, I have Priscilla Cadman on the line. If I can defer to her real quickly on that process of the application. It's just capturing the income-based determinations, and that needs to be on support. We get audited for that in the use of these federal funds, and it's just the nature of what the program has been since NHA was created back when. So if I can do that, Mr. Johnson, real quickly.
Yes, Ms. Yazzie, that'll be fine.
Priscilla, could you please provide just a quick overview, less than 1 minute or two, with respect to the application or your coordination with the non-NTUA utility suppliers?
Chanel Tawny, Madam Vice Chair, Chair for RDC. On the call, guest visitors. My name is Priscilla Kath, Housing Management Division. Bitani Chino Tapahe Edashaja, Kia Ani Edashachado, Tatni Sani Edashanala, Akutai Nasan and Shla. I was tasked with this over a year ago by the former CEO, Ms. Maureen Curley. And at the time, NTUA did come again. Ms. Yazzie did give a little brief synopsis of that. Right now, I've been working with non-NTUA utility suppliers. They have been given applications just similar to what NTUA is utilizing with, and the families have been providing their applications. And what I've been doing is outreaching to the non-NTUA utility suppliers. In this case, I have Rama Utility Authority, Socorro, Continental Divide, and Gallup, APS out towards Western Agency, and then Jemez Mountain Co-op. There we're working with the families to provide their applications, which I do have a stack right now that I'm reviewing as we're on the call. I do review the applications to make sure it is complete. I do review the income to make sure they are income eligible utilizing the U.S. medium income limit chart. And once it is been determined eligible, we do the quality assurance. Thereafter, we do the request for direct payment, and that goes down to the finance department. Right now, like I said, with the stack that I do have, we are going to be processing another handful of non-NTUA customers along with the NTUA RDPs. So it is something that we are tasked to do, and we're doing our best to assist our our families that are living on the Navajo Nation with the Emergency Utility Assistance Program. So I have been doing outreach through email, through telephone, and letters to the utility providers to assist the families that are living on the Navajo Nation, that they are providing utility assistance to. So there's all different types of contacts that I'm making, and I am recording and documenting all my calls and contacts with these providers. So thank you very much, and I yield the floor back to Ms. Yazzie.
Thank you, Priscilla. And I would agree, Madam Chairwoman, with regard to the social media. Perhaps we just do a mass wave of that in select areas where non-NTUA utility suppliers provide services. That's a great suggestion, I think. But we're really looking to the source, and that is the utility supplier, giving us that listing of families or customers that are subject to disconnect. That's the first source, and therefore we're targeting those specific families directly, and not. I think making mass communication to the public may have some misunderstandings as to what the intent of that is. But to the extent that these CARES funds are available, that's just, I think, the nature of how this was aligned initially when it was brought to NHA. So hopefully that can provide some immediate response. Madam Chairwoman, I'll yield back to Pro Tem Vice Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Madam Chair.
Honorable Vice Chair.
Okay, at this time, are there any other questions or comments from my honorable RDC colleagues? Okay, Mariana, go ahead.
This is Mariana Khan. At the very beginning of this discussion, there was information with regard to, learned that there were some directives. I just wanted to, Bobby had to this issue.
I'm gonna give the floor to either NTUA or NHA to respond to that. If there was any directives, Joshua?
Vice Chair and, RDC, committee members, I'm not aware that there was, directives that were made. During last week's meeting, there was request for information on the, eligibility criteria from the Indian, Development Block Grant. And so, Delegate Charles Newton requested that, and that was sent to her. There was one other request that was made by, Delegate, later, and so I believe that was provided as well. So there I don't recall any directives. There was requests for information that has since been provided.
And then a similar information from Delegate Nota about sending radio announcements beyond KTNN, but to some of the other areas. And then just some other requests for supplemental reports.
Vice Chair Johnson, members of RDC, according to the vote tally that was generated by Navi, there's no indication of a directive issued by the committee. However, we have Chief of Staff Manuel Rico and Deputy Chief of Staff Jared Touchin on the call as well, so they can provide any additional information if there was a directive issued during that time.
Okay.
Back to you, Vice Chair Johnson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tahi. I'll go to give some time to, Chairman Ness.
Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson, colleagues. As I recall, Thursday was only a few days ago. On that day, the only directive that was issued was to the Department of Agriculture. But there were a lot of questions and concerns as to, why issues. Ila yesipenina, yahadi beso o hayu, beshmas anya hunzen doya yastki, benina ya yastki ke la setenehki. Biche nahot iki biche ndahi naniki kote ne ka jeta no but la wahton zel ha ila benna yon zel hot dida den be incomeki ki la yaha to dash oda bata ni do ki la yin ya na ites kidiki benina la ko pa na ida kitten la Sanant, not Seneki, Arakro, Delegate Simpson Yahaji, Ne, Hot Dot Dida, 11 Chita, de Queens and Tadida, de Quaggy, Besoki, March 2021, at de Kodo Emergency Rental Gift, Chair Puliala. Ado Besoki, 2819, Chepi, the mail. Ntsaki a koho echos eat a konde last at the has taught the mail of 96 million abichan pulia gogo. Adult such a unspent a 68 million has taught the be the mail so a late o hot neniki choba yel kitten le. Sanant not seniki hate I got a asate. O NHA bichim that the need being board members double that the need being dila ila benia kwahona tinto a here hapik a peso ada Washington then hon inkoko o hona tintate a niti sato peso ki quibakaki a yaha utility bakaki Nihonel, join hitch, Holia, John Nihit, Papa needs and go, Yinil Ta. Ako, Ata, Yahadida, Emergency Utility Assistance Program, Mickey. I don't know if NHA still has, I remember there was 2 people on there. I don't know if there's another one or what, but I know one verbally said that I resigned because I'm going to go back to teaching, no? So these are some of the reasons that we really need to just sit down like a leadership meeting. maybe in person, corona hit that on the house, on the British kisto, Dean the Quaggy, in exchange, just right here. I get up because, you know, somebody should have come here in person. If NTUA is able to drive from Fort Defiance, he live in Yedo, Con hit that or that's a data. Oh, when so on, just case, Lens, Honorable Simpson, but with all shit, Honorable Johnson, round trip for me is 210 miles. I'm sure his is about 300 miles, and Mr. Johnson's probably about 300 miles as well. So, maybe the next time that we do have NHA here, Nishigi Corona hit that or Sitag on the house, the Bedil Kitko. So I think we just need to have a separate meeting. But Nihitaran has Tado, on hitch in the Hadleko, Wedel in the Hadlando, Behadauto, don't Hostan hitch it at the Kata, Hostan the Bedin, Nito, could the Ahas named. They need to be here. Aranko, Nihitaran Satao, Yaha, Koromas Yazito, Korobanda, Michigan, the Bedil Kit. What kitna an nishjodiga? Corona Anini, Leniki Resources and Development Committee Oversight need long. Height Coron NHA Bakadi Lord. A quaggy communication again up of not let or honky don histago. A co open show about this here. Thank you. Back to you, Vice Chair.
Chairman Nance. Give Chief Manuel Rico regarding the question of the director from last Thursday's NABI meeting. Any directive for NTUA or NHA?
Good afternoon. Is it still good morning, Vice Chair Johnson and members of the Resource and Development Committee. This is Emmanuel Rico, Chief of Staff with the Office of the Speaker. And in regards to the directive, I think Chairman Nez did discuss one of the directives, but if there was any other directive, I just got back into the office and got on the call, so let me look into see if there's any other directive, and then I can forward that, relay that message back to the RDC committee, Vice Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Chief Rico. Okay, I'd like to give it back to NHA and TUA. You guys have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Johnson. Although to the comments that were made, we would be happy to have a face meeting. And I apologize, but I looked at the agenda. There was 3 asterisks on the front page that said, due to limited space at the Navajo Nation Land Department, the space is limited to the Resource and Development Committee and staff. So I read that to be a constraint on our part to be in person. But to the extent that we want to have a face meeting, we certainly would invite that, and we certainly will. And I appreciate the relaying of working with each other. I believe in that too as well. I just returned to NHA in February of last year, so I have assessed what may have occurred, and I think a meeting would be in order so that there's really understanding as to why things did not happen the way they should have, right, when the funds were awarded back when. But we'd be happy to sit and provide that full information. I certainly will invite our board members to as well and let them know. Thank you for that, Honorable Chair, Honorable RDC Member Nez, and then to, I think, I wasn't available to at June 8th. I was attending my father's funeral on that day. We have Terilyn Cook, who attended that meeting from NHA, and there were no directives that were mentioned as well from their attendance and report out to me. Honorable Vice Chair Johnson, back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. I just want to give you my condolences to the family on your loss. So I can go ahead and yield the floor over to Chairman Nez
Thank you, Vice Chair, other Chair Jesus, and Honorable Simpson, other colleagues on the call with us. Ms. Yazzie, not the agenda launch at not source. Quaki, Tago da Ishko. Due to the limited space at the Navajo Nation Land Department, access will be telephonic for the public, for the public, nego great otaki, yastiko abgitishi. Aro koro, ninja Picago, ninja Picago. I think you guys should make every effort to be here to provide a report. Because if any NTOA is here, you should be here as well. So when it says for the public, the public doesn't provide a report to us. Okay,
Chairman Nez, we'll go ahead and, turn the floor over to, Delegate Simpson.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Madam Chair, Honorable Delegate. Yes, to my colleagues, already. Good morning. Vice Chair, Honorable Delegate has stated, I agree with him that this should be big, but one thing that we actually have to be and
Can't hear you.
So with that, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to have another meeting with, since there's really no type of direction that's given to NHA and NTA, and I know they're working on it to get this money and these fundings out to our Navajo people for emergency assistance for utilities. I'd like to go off what Mr. Nez stated, Honorable Delegate Nez stated, to have another meeting with NHA and NTA in person, and all come as one since we're oversight these entities. I think we really need to come together to see how we can get this thing done, to get all this money expended and provide these emergency assistance to our Navajo people with this utility we're talking about. When we say emergency, it should have been done right away. There has been some other plan in place. If we're not getting all the applicants to apply, community Navajo people to apply, that get served by NTA or non-NTA service providers, something should be in place to make sure that we get a good amount of applicants to expend all this money, especially to our Navajo who are in dire need to get assistance. So, then going back to NTA and NHA, they don't come back to us, how can RDC assist us through maybe certain policies that needs to be implemented or amended, or laws that needs to be amended or implemented. So those are things I'm talking about. So we need to sit down. So if we got a lot of money out there, that I think we have to really start coming together and RDC with these entities to really, not just with NHA or NTA, but right now it's a start to get this done. I know that the progress is in place, but I don't want to be 3 or 4 months down the road again, oh, we only spent another $1 million. I don't want to hear that. I want to make sure that all our community members that are in dire need, that have outstanding balances, the utilities, I want this money to be there to help them out, to make sure they have these decreased their balances, their balances that are outstanding, or zeroed out. So I thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of RDC. So I feel what so I don't want to be saying like what happened here. Money was approved back in September. Policy was finally approved by the board in May 2023. Let's go to the Madam Chair and members of RDC here.
Okay, Honorable Simpson, thank you for your comments. Go back to the floor. If anybody else, RDC colleagues, have any questions or comments? Okay, at this time, I'm gonna go to get the gavel back to, Madam Chair Jesus.
Vice Chair Johnson, for your assistance, and also to members of Resource Committee. And thank you for, callers that are listening in on the call here this morning. Again, the dialogue had taken place between, getting a report from Navajo Housing Authority, Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, the recommendations that were made by honorable members, as we know that our constituents are being highly impacted with disconnection notices throughout the Great Navajo Nation, and that we just want to be able to utilize these funds in the most fastest way possible. Again, we are always up against the timeline, especially if we're talking about federal dollars, you know, that have been allotted from U.S. Treasury. We do not know at what time these funds are gonna be requested back. So again, thank you, Mr. Ashley, and also Mr. Pete, for being here in person. I did request to Ms. Doreen Yazzie via text that it would be more suitable to have Ms. Yazzie here in person at this meeting here today. And going forward, we would like to have a more in-depth, in-person dialogue going forward, because a lot of these issues, again, are trying to address issues for our constituents, and how can we, as a Resources and Development Committee, be of assistance if it needs any type of policy change and either any directives that need to be made. So again, Kodosha Not Ani Linigi with Navajo Housing Authority, do NTUA, Kodoha Shin Sogo Not Ani ni Linigin Hitika, Lady Hik A Hit the Na Keda Hat Enigi, Cho In Hit Stays in Hait A Dide, and Shin Linigi, Leho wanted that the Higin Shabik and Don Yeshi Danzen. Ashon the Quagin non hinge cake or other head Adan Linigi Piho, non Nishigin Hat of Set Ashi ni Aita, Nihinan Nish Balatin, the Shi, Kun Linigi Eya, the Hat need left from Resources and Development Committee. Ben ya Eya non Nishin Linigi Basic at the Hadini. Kun Linigi Hat Ega in the Hat, she ain't his behazin, Kodo Eyan Hasi, Dado Kodo Eya. Hinahat do intahat in Hainil Halate in Linigi Hajoba Dol Nisa Jo Equinson do Yabaka Isinil Kodon Linigi not Ani Nis Lingo. A Kodo Eya Shahat Hidini do Kodon Hanas Nishigi in Le Navajo Tribal Utility do Le Saho Utility Companies Ku Navajo Nation Baka but since does Ido Navajo Housing Authority here, so Ado ein Linigi she Nashol, she ya Kodon Linigi a Hoko Nahiti Nido, Kodo Resources and Development Committee Hajo Bestatini Beef, Kodo Eya Haid Ege Eya non nation Linigi Deal Nido Kun Linigi Hashine large Enkel Behas and Nahot at the Nebekea Paka. Kuda the Neho one yet that done Lido hat ige in the has enkis Ishana Osa a cohon Linigit English Hajo Pink Yana Natio Hait Adan Linigin Nadok and so the Hajo and Nadol Nis a co 8 could Ela Shanat Ani no Sinido the Nanan Trago Shahat and Kitishnido Kodon Linigi in Kananish at Dos at England Haba up no sin. The person Lini Eya to Washington or bait these netta. Eda Asa the cheeses talk cheated eating son Linigi and sea case to could our angels choho and he not any Linigi quagget on Habe and Haba no sen. A call a shahat Adon Linigi Kodon report or stuff. Miss Yazzie and also to Mr. Ashley and also to Mr. Pete here, for allowing time here to come before Resources and Development Committee to give your report, and we will be eventually coming back around for another report here, probably even within 4 weeks, to see if there has been any progress and more drawdowns for utility coverage for our constituents in the greater part of the Navajo Nation. So with that, If there are no other questions to members of Resources and Development Committee or, recommendation or comments, going once, going twice, Mr. Tahi, can you please take a roll call vote?
And Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for 5A, report from NHA. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote? Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto, how do you vote? Otto votes green via text. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote? Madam Chair, that's 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
With that, members of RDC, motion carries, and again, thank you, gentlemen, for being here this morning, and also NHA and Kesto Hiaha. Going on to item B, on number 5, receiving reports of the agenda, report from the Division of Community Development on American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA projects as it relates to the indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, ID, IQ contract statuses. Do we have Mr. Calvin Castillo on the call still? Okay, so at this point, Mr. Castillo and also to Mr. Atakai, Deputy Division Director for Division of Community Development, if you can please share information on the current status of the ID, IQ contracts per ARPA monies that was allotted for chapter projects. Again, we'd like to know the status of where these contracts are. Has it been signed by President? And also was notice to proceed given to the consultants that, I guess as project management consultants, as to when their start date is going to be, and how is it broken down? Is it broken down by agency or by region? So, Mr. Castillo, Mr. Atakai, I do allot you time of 20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair Jesus, and good afternoon, good afternoon to all the RDC members. Good afternoon, honorable members. On the IDIQ contract, we have the layout of how we distribute the projects to the IDIQ firms. I sent that over. We sent that over this morning, so everybody should have that to Mr. Pahi. I hope he distributed that out. We also have the letter that we sent to contracts to get a contract number. There was 2 source of funding identified from the ARPA. One was approved for $5 million. We're still working on the 7. There's some line items there they want clarification on how that number was developed. So we're giving that to them. Ms. Draper and Mr. Arnold Jake from FRF is working on that with Mr. Jones. Is that right, Mr. Jones? Yeah, Jermaine Jones and Cordell Shorley. So we can get that out. All the work orders I sent along of how the work was going to be distributed, and we have the notice to proceed already ready to go. As soon as we get that contract number, maybe the end of the day or tomorrow morning, we'll be shooting those contracts out. So that's the status on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Leo, for your report. At this point, I'd like to ask some questions, so if I can give the gavel back over to Vice Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All my honorable RDC colleagues here today with us, and everybody else that's here in the room with us, and Mr. Castillo to be on the line, as well as other community development line. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to go ahead and give the floor to Madam Chair Brenda Seuss for her comments and questions.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. And again, thank you, Mr. Castillo, for sharing information. So the purpose of bringing this particular topic onto our agenda here today is, for several reasons. And, as Chair of Resources and Development Committee, we had, a meeting with, U.S. Treasury via Zoom on Friday. We had Chair Parrish on the call. We had Washington, staff, Mr. Justin Ahasteen, and we actually had the main director from the U.S. Treasury Office on the call. And this has been a concern, coming into the 25th Navajo Nation Council as to what is Division of Community Development strategy going forward. I know that we talk about these IDIQ contracts. I'd like to know how many project management, or A&E firm consultants are we actually, talking about? Is there 4 or 5? That's my first question. Number 2 is, the IDIQ contracts. Who are the project management, consulting, leads that have been awarded these contracts? That's my second question. Number 3, my third question is in regards to these contracts, just where are the contracts, in the 164 review process? I don't know if it has passed DOJ and is it pending, OPVP's final approval? And with that, when are we looking at in terms of timeline for these, project management consultants to actually get the notice to proceed, to actually, expedite, the scope of work that was outlined in the IDIQ requests? That's question number 3. Now, going on to my question number 4 is, I know that a lot of these chapters had submitted projects, under ARPA. Some projects are on a smaller scale, some projects are on a bigger scale. I know that some projects that are looking at renovation or even extension to, chapter, facilities don't even have their plans 100%, approved because they're still in the design stages. And I also know that some of these chapter projects have not even acquired the approved utility analysis, whether if it's by NTUA or CDEC as of yet, because their plans are still in the final stages of it being approved and stamped by the architect or the A&E firm. Now, what is Division of Community Development plan? Because we are up against a timeline. We are already in the middle part of calendar year 2023, and we are supposed to have these funds encumbered by the end of December 2024. We had requested to Office of Management and Budget and U.S. Treasury Department if there could be a possible extension to these deadlines that were given to the Navajo Nation by U.S. Treasury. Now, in terms of strategy, what is Division of Community Development's plan for these projects that we know now are not going to be encumbered by the end of December 2024? Are we going to pull those monies back together and put it to more viable projects that are that can be built out? And so these are the questions that I want to ask Shanat Ani Nosinigi Adan. And so with that, Vice Chair, I'd like to go ahead and give it back to you. Yeah.
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you for your comments and your questions. I'll go ahead and yield the floor back over to Mr. Castillo for response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pro Tem Chair. Mr. Johnson? Yeah, Honorable Johnson. Honorable Jesus, your questions. Number 4, how many contractors? We got 4. The first one is IDSA. They will be handling the eastern southern portion of the Navajo Nation. They will have 6 council delegates regions that they'll be looking at those chapters. The other one will be the northern half of the eastern chapters, which will be covered by Inaba out of Farmington. The central chapters will be done by Lamb Corporation out of Gallup, and the outer regions of the western chapters will be done by JSR2 out of Tucson, Arizona, but they're going to look for an office either in Tuba City or here in Wonder Rock. They're going to move up for that. They'll all be assigned 5 or 6 council delegate regions. Bill will have us an organization chart to your question number 3 of who the primary point of contact or the main engineer that we'll be talking to. Then they'll give us the PM names of who they're going to assign to all the chapters. Who are we going to be talking to as far as payments? Their administrative staff and all that will be in their org charts. The third question is the scope of work. Is the first thing they're going to look at is the vetting all the projects that are on the list of these chapters. We're going after the low-hanging fruit first, which is the power line extensions, the water line extensions, the bathroom additions, broadband, all that stuff that's already on the other sections in CJN 2922. We still have to spend the money in section 3 under the chapter, but we will have another subrecipient agreements under section 3 for those projects. And the one you're talking about is where I'm worried about are the renovation projects and the construction projects. Those after the A&E firms vetted, because these estimates were done in 2019, they will come back to us and we'll sit down with the chapters and see if they're doable or not. If they have other water line extension people that they can add to the list, we'll work with them on that and try to keep the money in some other section of the CJY in 2922. That's the kind of the scope of work we're working with right now. If not, we'll probably write a letter saying some of this money will be diverted back because we can't find anything, or it's not doable to do in the time frame. So I hope I answered all your questions, Honorable Jesus.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. I'll go ahead and give the floor back to Madam Chair Seuss for a response.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Castillo, for the information on the consultants that were hired to take on these projects under ARPA for the chapters. One area that I just want to get information on is going forward in a project schedule format. Are you able to provide a timeline of when these sprints will be happening? You mentioned that sprint 1 would probably be the activities of the contracts to be signed. What is the next steps over with that? So if you can provide that in a project schedule format, that will give a clear understanding to Resources and Development Committee as to when we are looking at in terms of which projects will not be doable and which projects will be doable under the chapter and which will go forward to construction. But for some of the projects that are not doable, we need to have a timeline so that the chapters can be readily available as to what would be their plan B and how they would like to, exercise and how these funds are going to be spent per the delegate region, allocations that was given to, the delegates with these ARPA dollars. So with that, are you able to provide such a, schedule here? Possibly, if not the end of this month, we're already the middle part of this week, but are you able to provide something by next week and send it out to Mr. Tahi? Back to you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Castillo, your response, please.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Jesus, thank you for the question. Yes, I think I need up to July 7th. The IDIQ contractors are going to have kickoff meetings the week of the 26th. And then they're going to look at all their projects and put a schedule of all the ones that are going to need construction or some type of renovation where a schedule is going to be needed. And then they'll give that to us, and we'll look at all of them, see which one's doable. All the other ones, we can just lump them all together, and then we can put a schedule when their subrecipient agreements are going to be done. We're just going to do one and just lump all the projects together, probably one on Arizona side and one on New Mexico side. All the stuff that's written in the CJN 2922. So if you can give me to the 7th, I think with our consultants, we can put a schedule together, a good comprehensive schedule. That's what I was looking at. Because you're right, time is of essence, and I need those schedules right away. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo, for your response. I'm going to yield the floor back over to Madam Chair Seuss for follow-up.
Mr. Castillo, I was more or less looking at your leadership there with Division of Community Development, just to the point of requesting for this project schedule and the sprints of these activities that need to happen to get these contracts out to notice to proceed for these firms that you just mentioned. That's the schedule that I'm referencing, Mr. Castillo. Back to you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Castillo, your response, please.
Okay, thank you for the question again, Honorable Jesus. Yes, I can get a schedule out by the 23rd. For how the IDIQ can be executed.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo, for your response. There's no further questions from Madam Chair Seuss. Any other questions or comments from my RDC colleagues? Going once, twice. Okay. Let's go ahead and take this to the roll call vote to accept the report. Mr. Tai? Okay, I'll go ahead and get a motion to accept the report. Madam Chair Seuss, by Chairman Nez. Roll call vote.
Vice Chair Johnson, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for accepting Report 7B from the Division of Community Development. Honorable Shauna Nkwa, how do you vote? Honorable Brenda Jesus, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Brenda Jesus votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto Still, how do you vote? Honorable Otto Still, how do you vote? Vice Chair Johnson, that's 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Vice Chair Johnson not voting.
Yeah, Mr. Tai, thank you for that. So, gonna go ahead and give the gavel back over to Madam Chair Brenda Seuss.
Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson, for your assistance again. And again, I'd just like to thank Mr. Castillo, to you and your team there with the Division of Community Development. And again, this is just for the importance of getting the whatever project built out are feasible to be built out, or do we need to come back to the drawing board and start redirecting these funds? Or do we need to start, selecting projects that would be feasible to be built out by the time that it was allotted to the Navajo Nation? So again, thank you to your team there, keeping on top of, information sharing and looking at the best methodology going forward to get these, projects built out. So so with that, members of Resources Development Committee, we take it on to item C on the agenda. Update report from the Navajo Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit on the direction from the 24th Resources and Development Committee to research and draft a lawsuit against the United States Department of the Interior as it relates to Chaco Canyon. Now, this requires an executive session. We do have legal counsel, Ms. Veronica Blackhat, present here in person. So, do I request?
Motion for executive session.
So, members of Resources and Development Committee, I'd like to request, to get a motion to put this particular discussion into executive session. Do I have a motion? Vice Chair Johnson, may I get a second? Honorable Simpson, So, Mr. Tahi, can you please go ahead and take roll call vote to go into executive session?
Madam Chair,
Honorable Ness?
how long?
How long do we plan on being in executive session?
I think it's not gonna take long.
20 minutes? Yeah. Ogweshi, do we agree with 20 minutes?
Madam Chair,
Honorable Simpson?
that's fine with me. It's fine with me, but, a question to the committee here. I know that our Navajo Lotties, being affected by this Chaco Canyon, by Deb Holland, they do have their own, attorney too. Jennifer, Weddle, they have her as attorney there. I'm not sure if Carlisle Brigade's on the line too. Young there?
Mr. Carlisle Begay, are you on the call, sir?
So, how about Jennifer Weddle? She's on.
Ms. Jennifer Weddle, are you on the phone call? If you are, star 6 to unmute.
If they're on there, then it's okay to.
Okay, so with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, we will allot a 20 minutes, executive session. So, okay.
Questions and answers.
With that recommendation from Honorable Nez, to go ahead and allot 30 minutes in executive session for this topic discussion. So Honorable, Mr. Tahi, can you take roll call vote to go into executive session for 30
Madam Chair,
minutes?
members of RDC, this is roll call vote for executive session for item 7C. Honorable Shawna Inqua, how do you vote? Honorable Casey Ellen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes green.
Honorable Casey Ellen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote? Honorable Otto So, how do you vote? Madam Chair, that's 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting. Yes, we're going to go to executive session.
We will be going into executive session, at 12:23 p.m. 12:53.
Oh, is that rodeo? Yeah. Really? I go to agency council, I can't go to rodeo. I have to go to an agency council meeting, I can't even get to go to the rodeo. Oh, I didn't know that. Is it a PBR or? Oh, okay. Mm. Okay. Mhm. Oh. In the 80s? Yeah. Marvin Red Horse? Yeah. Gerald Hood? Gerald Ellis. Yeah, Gerald Ellis, yeah. Yeah. Then we had my cousin brother, name was Robert Largo. Used to ride there.
Mr. Castillo, you might want to mute your phone.
Madam Chair, you're good to go.
Wishing, Mr. Tahi, and also members to Resources Development Committee and Legal Counsel that are present here from Natural Resources Unit and Legislative. I'd like to go ahead and, request for, a motion to exit out of executive session at 1:24 PM. May I get a motion? A motion by Honorable Danny Simpson. May I get a second? Vice Chair Johnson. Mr. Tahi, could you please take a roll call vote?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for exiting executive session. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote? Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes green.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote? Madam Chair, that's 3 in favor, 0 opposed, the Madam Chair not voting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tahi. With that, motion carries on to, does it carry? Oh, okay. So that was, vote for the, exiting the executive session for this report. Now I'd like to go ahead and go for a roll call vote on the main motion. Okay,
Motion.
by Honorable, I already have that by Honorable.
No.
Okay, so motion by Honorable Nez, and may I get a second? Honorable Vice Chair Johnson. Mr. Chai, could you please take a roll call vote?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for 7C, accepting a report from Navajo Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote? Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes green.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote? Madam Chair, that's 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chai. With that, motion carries on to item 6 on the agenda, old business. There is none. Honorable Simpson?
Madam Chair, I think we'll need, I'm not sure how about this, but, Brianna can direct me how to go about it. Possibly did like this, honorable delegate, we didn't delete off the agenda, we just bypassed. Really good.
Ms. Khan?
The, current standing committee rules don't have a procedure for this. Now, the item has not been, removed from the agenda. You have the ability, what's in the rules is to amend the agenda to add, move it to the bottom of the only procedure avenue I see is to move it to. But we did not.
So with that, one of the delegates or the members from RDC have to make a motion to. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Honorable Simpson?
With that, thank you, Ms. Khan. And all this stuff, so I'd like to offer an amendment. Move it to, chapter E, the item to chapter E.
Madam Chair, members of RDC, what the motion is adding item 7A, since the sponsor wasn't here to the end, which, I guess prior to accepting old business if there's none, and right after, or right before 8, close of meeting announcements and adjournment.
So, members of Resources and Development Committee, there has been a, amendment motion by Honorable Simpson to, look at moving legislation 0106-23, after or before item number 8, close of meeting on the agenda. So with that, may I get a second? So, members of RDC, may I get a second to move legislation 0106-23 before item 8, close of meeting on the agenda? Vice Chair Johnson, yeah. That, members of Resources and Development Committee, Honorable Ness?
The motioning party to amend the agenda, perhaps this is the time that we could add the meeting on the 23rd. So I will ask to modify the motion to include a meeting, a leadership meeting by the Resource and Development Committee, invite the 25th Navajo Nation Council, the Office of the President, Vice President, and most especially the Honorable President Bhuvan Nigrin, and the Honorable Vice President Rochelle Montoya to be present at this meeting at Nayizi chapter to meet and listen to our dear Navajo Latis, also to include the Department of Justice there and our Office of Legislative Counsel, as well as the Historic and Heritage Preservation Department to be present. On June 23rd, starting at 9:00 a.m., I would like to request to the motioning and second parties here to modify their amendment to the agenda.
Yeah, Honorable Nez, with that, to the motioning party, Mr. Honorable Simpson, if you're willing to allow to add the leadership meeting slated for, or recommended for June 23rd to be added. Okay. And then Vice Chair, seconding party concurs. Okay. Okay. So there is a concurrence by the motioning and seconding party to add leadership meeting at the Nayizi chapter in regards to Chaco Canyon, and requesting the, participation of members of the 25th Navajo Nation Council, Office of the President and Vice President, to have President Bhuvan Nigrin and Madam Vice President Rochelle Montoya, along with Department of Justice Legal Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel, and Historic Preservation Department to be present at this meeting on June 23rd at Nayizi chapter at 9 a.m. So, do I have any questions at this point to the amendment that was made by Honorable Simpson? Members of RDC, going once, going twice, 3 times. Mr. Tai, can you please take a roll call vote on the amendment?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for adding item legislation 0106-23 to the end of the agenda, as well as adding the leadership meeting for Friday, June 23rd at Nayizi. Includes Navajo Nation Council, OPDP leadership, Department of Justice, Navajo Nation Historic and Preservation Department as well. Honorable Shauna Encla, how do you vote? Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes green.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Auditor, how do you vote? Madam Chair, that's 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Okay. With that, thank you, Mr. Tyer, for taking roll call and going to. Okay. So with that, Mr. Tahi, could you please read legislation number 0106-23 to the record?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, you have legislation summary sheet for tracking number 0106-23, date May 23rd, 2023, titled "The Resolution, a Proposed Standing Committee Resolution, an action relating to the Resource and Development Committee, concurring to the appointment of Tom Ranger to serve on the Management Board of the Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise. The purpose of this resolution is to concur to the appointment of Tom Ranger to the Management Board of the Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise for 3 years. Resource and Development Committee has final authority over this legislation, which will be read into the record in its entirety. The primary sponsor of this legislation is Honorable Seth Damon for tracking number 0106-23, an action relating to Resource and Development Committee, concurring to the appointment of Tom Ranger to serve on the Management Board of the Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise. Be enacted, Section 1, Authority. The Resource and Development Committee is a standing committee of the Navajo Nation Council, 2 in NC Section 500. B, the Resource and Development Committee has authority to give final approval for deployment to the Navajo Nation Enterprise, 2 in NC Section 501B9. C, Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise, Plan of Operation as approved by CD-79-02 is attached as Exhibit 1, and Article 5A states that the Management Board shall consist of 5 members appointed to staggering 3-year terms by the President of the Navajo Nation with the concurrence of the Economic Development Committee. Now, the Resource and Development Committee of the Navajo Nation Council, CO-45-12, Section 5. Section 2, findings. A, 5, NNC Section 1843A states that the business and affairs of NNHE shall be managed by a 5-person board of directors, the members of which shall meet the qualifications established in the NNHE's Plan of Operations. The Board of Directors shall conduct its business in similar manner as Board of Directors of successful corporations in the hospitality business to the extent feasible and permit under NNHE's Plan of Operation and other applicable Navajo Nation law. B, Navajo Nation Hospital Enterprises Plan of Operation attached as Exhibit 1 at Article 5. B states that of the 5 board members appointed, 1 member must be an expert business person, 1 member of the Government Services Committee, now the Navigate Committee of the Navajo Nation Council, 1 of the Economic Development Committee, now Resource and Development Committee of the Navajo Nation Council, and 2 members must have recognized expertise and substantial management experience in the motel restaurant industry. No other employees of the federal or Navajo Nation government shall be a member of the Management Board. No board shall be an employee of the enterprise. C, CO-45-12, Section 5. C, the President of the Navajo Nation has appointed Tom Ranger by letter dated April 20th, 2023, attached as Exhibit E. B, Tom Ranger's resume and letter of interest are attached as Exhibit 3. Tom Ranger fulfills the requirement for reappointment as he is an expert business person. E, in the best interest of the Navajo Nation, that Tom Ranger be appointed to the position on the NNHE. Section 3, appointment. The Resource and Development Committee of the Navajo Nation Council hereby concurs to the appointment of Tom Ranger to the Management Board of the Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise. He shall be appointed for 3 years as provided in the NNHE's Plan of Operation. Attached as Exhibit 1, which is a resolution of the Navajo Nation Council, CD-79-02. Attached as Exhibit 2, which is a letter dated April 20th, 2023, signed by President Boo Nygren regarding the Navajo Nation Enterprise, Hospitality Enterprise Management Board of Directors. Attaches Exhibit 3, which is a resume and letter of interest of Tom Ranger. Attaches, and finally, has the first report of the Navajo Nation Legislative Branch in a public review summary. This legislation was posted on May 16th, 2023 at 5:18 p.m. The 5-day comment period ended May 21st, 2023. There was no comment supporting this legislation, no comments opposing this legislation, no comments recommendation on this legislation. Madam Chair, members of RDC, that is legislation number 0106-23, read into the record. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tahi. So with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any questions on this legislation? A motion by Honorable Nez. And second, Honorable.
Second by Otto.
Ani. So with that, members of Resources Development Committee, do we have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so with that, we do have sponsor Honorable Seth Damon in person. So Mr. Damon, you do have the floor for a presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and, good afternoon to, members of the Resource and Development Committee that are here in the conference room, and then those that are on the teleconference call. Good afternoon to all the staff, and then everybody else listening in. I bring to you legislation 0106-23. It's a legislation that, has final authority here at Resource and Development Committee, but it's appointing Mr. Tom Ranger to serve as for the management board of the Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise. If you see in there, there's 5 members of the board. This is one of the members that under his in page 202, section B, line 10. It says 2 have recognized experience as sustainable management restaurant industry. And that's President Dugan requested that Mr. Tom Ranger one of those 2 positions. But this time, I'm Chair. If there's any questions to myself, I'm here to answer specific. I don't know if there's anybody that's on the line from the Office of the President or Vice President, or if there's a Mr. Tom Ranger that is on the call too as well. But if there is, if there's any direct questions to myself that I can't answer at this time, I leave it up to the committee as you please in trying to get that information. And then really trying to make sure that the clearance moves forward. But third time, I just wanted to make sure that I was here this time so that Madam Chair, on the agenda. I'll go ahead and yield back to the floor at this time.
Honorable Damon. So again, Damon did mention that if there's any questions that will be posed to him, but do we have Mr. Tom Ranger on the call? Tom Ranger. Do we have anyone from OPVP? Mr. Stewart. Okay, so right now, I do have honorable colleague, Mr. Rick Nez, that, has questions or comments, so I do yield the floor to you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow colleagues, and Honorable Speaker Damon. Legislation 0106-23. You're asking my colleagues to approve this legislation for Mr. Tom Ranger. But just for your information, Speaker Damon, I want you to know that I'm also a board member of Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise, as well as my colleague, Honorable Otto So. And there's Mr. Lorenzo Max is the chair as well, and Lawrence Platero is also on the board. Now, we had a gentleman by the name of Alan Niley, and this gentleman had a vast experience of hotel industry as well as restaurants. I don't know anybody would retain someone, you know, if we could retain or search for someone of his caliber, that would be a blessing to the board, because when it entails hotel industry, you need an expert in that area. Now, when Navajo Housing Authority, they advertise that when positions are open, when applicants their applications come in the president, the speaker, as well as, a member of RDC is a member, these three are the selection committee for NHA. So what happens is NHA they send out and pay for advertisements. And I think this is where, Speaker Damon, maybe give an opportunity for Hospitality Enterprise to perhaps re-advertise the position and see how many applicants come in, not just a selection by the president and say, here's one person. When it becomes political, business administration degree, no, it's good. I'm not saying tomorrow, we're having a meeting with the president and discuss what the Hospitality Enterprise entails. I was supposed to be in Albuquerque tomorrow for the delegates meeting, as well as on Friday, but tomorrow I have to be here meeting with the president and Hospitality Enterprise tomorrow. If you could hold off on this legislation until after we meet, then come back. If you're then perhaps I could make a motion to table for at least a week or maybe even 30 days out of respect, you know, for the board members and what they would like to see a part of the board for the Hospitality Enterprise.
Thank you, Honorable Naz. Honorable Damon, in response to Honorable Naz's request.
Very much, Chairman Nez. If you see, I think, how many weeks has it been on there? 3 weeks. I have been waiting for a telephone call, an email, or something from Navajo Nation Hospital that there's that follow-up. No one has ever got back to me. I met with the president and his team, Autoso and FAT board members. Follow-up meeting, there was supposed I would hold off on that, but I haven't got any response, so there's no response either from Navajo Hospitality Enterprise or from the president. I asked both of them too, again, want me to hold off on this, and that's why I'm here today, because there's no response, and that means it's just the way it is. If there's no response to me, then I'm just wasting my time too. I don't know why the president's office couldn't get back to me. I don't know why Navajo Nation Hospitality Enterprise couldn't get back to me. And I would say things that could come out of it is you could vote it down. The other one is if you do it, then there's going to be a there, and then might as well we could just withdraw the legislation. So I just haven't got a response. And that's the reason why I've been waiting for that. That's why I asked your advisor to hold off on this legislation on the agenda, because I was waiting for a response, and I haven't got a response from anywhere. So I can leave it up to that's why my decision, the recommendation today is you all just, if there's no response, there's no action, vote it down. Or then there could be a move that sends a message, because of collaboration that I'm getting back from either Hospitality Enterprise or the president's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Damon. Back to you, Honorable Nez.
Thank you, Shatsila. for your response, and you don't mind us voting it down. Okay. Shenanta ashon rafanan hoshkan. So, we're, you know, it's okay for him, so, I would like to get back with the board and tell them, let's advertise this position, and even talk with the president, you know. Okay, and I apologize for that, sir, we just had a meeting on Thursday evening, so.
Honorable Nez, so I believe there is a mutual understanding here on the floor in regards to this legislation 106-23. And again, do we have any other members of Resources Development Committee that has any questions or comments?
I do.
Vice Chair?
Yes, on the membership, we've, already see, need you to this, Chairmaness. When did, Chairman Otto So, was he appointed to the quality?
Thank you, Vice
Chairmaness?
Chair. Honorable Nez, I'm gonna give it to you. Maybe you have recollection of it.
I've seen 3 years of membership. I don't know if that carries over to.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Johnson, for your question. You see, legislation, for him, it would probably be from Nabikiati, and I haven't seen that yet, which means even though he's on the board, it doesn't expire until the new person is appointed. It could be him or it could be somebody else. And
Honorable Nez, I did,
Madam Chair?
Okay, just real quickly first, Honorable Aruso, I did send out an email, to, Dana, but now that I know that this is on the Nabi side of the appointment for Navajo Nation Hospitality, that would have to be in the speaker's, realm, right? Okay, so, Honorable Aruso, you do have the floor.
Yes, Chairman, that issue pertaining to the appointment from Nabi is pretty much from the Speaker's office, and to what I understand, they are further researching the board portion, because possibility that component may change due to certain things that to the policy, because on the Navajo Hospitality Enterprise, they're not they're board members, they're not shareholders, so there are the legal Dana's office is researching that information out, and possibility the appointments from the boards may change, possibility in the future. So but yes, my appointment was from the Nabikiatkit Committee through a resolution, and the appointment basically my appointment expires when the new member from Nabi is selected, but at this time, Madam Speaker is getting that information researched out, and once they get additional clarity, she will introduce a new resolution, whether to appoint the new board or the may change. So so they are researching that out legally. So the other is the issue of what Chairman Nez has spoke about is something that is very important, and that as far as I'm going to weigh in on is that position requires an industry expert, and I believe that's what the board comprehension is. But if the president does agree to that, to Mr. Ranger, I think we can move forth. But in it, we haven't heard directly what the president wants. So, but the composition of the board, that position is an industry expert.
Honorable Aruso. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and allow, members to vote how they wish to vote on this legislation. But again, there was a discussion here, that was presented by, Honorable Nez in regards to this. But again, we do have, you know, the sponsor here, in person. So I'd like to go ahead and just, go straight to a roll call vote. Mr. Tahi?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for legislation number 0106-23. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote? Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes red.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes red. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes red.
Honorable Rick Nez votes red. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Red.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes red. Honorable Otto, how do you vote?
Orange, red.
Honorable Otto votes red. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote?
Red.
Honorable Shauna Enclaw votes red. Madam Chair, that's 0 approve, 4 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
Thank you. With that, motion failed. And again, thank you. Honorable statement. No hard feelings, Natalia Schultz.
Yeah, it's fine. It's your.
Madam Chair?
Some consolation.
Correction on the vote, it's 0 in favor, 5 opposed, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So with that, members of, Resource Development Committee, motion fails. Going on to the added item on the agendas, requesting a leadership meeting for Friday, June the 23rd, 2023 at 9 a.m. at the NAYU chapter, to invite the 25th Navajo Nation Council leadership, along with Office of the President, specifically President Boo Van Nygren, Madam Vice President Rochelle Montoya, Department of Justice, Legal Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel, and Historic Preservation Department personnel to be in attendance to discuss, and understand the positions of the constituents of the Chaco Canyon, initiative. So with that, members of Resources and Development Committee, may I get a motion on this leadership meeting scheduled for June 23rd?
Motion.
Honorable Rick Naz, may I get a second?
Second.
Honorable Simpson? Do we have any questions? Going once, going twice, 3 times? Take it for roll call vote, Mr. Tahi.
Honorable, Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for approving a leadership meeting on Friday, June 23rd at NAYU chapter at 9 a.m. Honorable Shauna Enclaw, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Shauna Enclaw votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes green.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Otto votes green. Madam Chair, that's 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
With that, motion carries. Going on to item number 8 on the agenda, close of meeting. Members of Resources and Development Committee, do we have any announcements to share? Honorable Ness?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the agenda where it speaks to limited space at Land Department, the second sentence where space at Navajo Land Department is limited to the Resource and Development Committee and staff, could we include presenters so they can be here to present? Thank you.
Thank you for that recommendation, Honorable Nez. Any other announcements, members of Resources and Development Committee? Going once, going twice. With that, I'd like to call for adjournment. May I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Otto Stoll.
Thank you, and may I get a second? Honorable Simpson. With that, Mr. Tahi, could you please take a roll call vote?
Madam Chair, members of RDC, this is roll call vote for adjournment. Honorable Shawna and Claude, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Shawna and Claude votes green. Honorable Casey Allen Johnson, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Casey Johnson votes green.
Honorable Casey Allen Johnson votes green. Honorable Ricky Nez, how do you vote?
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Danny Simpson, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Danny Simpson votes green. Honorable Otto So, how do you vote?
Green, thank you.
Otto So votes green. Madam Chair, that's 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and Madam Chair not voting.
With that, we do adjourn at 1:59 PM. And thank you, everyone, for staying on the call with us, and we look forward